Well, hello there, my friends. Dr. J here. Today I'm going to do a 6-month review, more or less. I've had it for about 6 months now. Review of the Ogo toilet. Also give you some tips and tricks in terms of installation and kind of show you what I did just to kind of tuck things away and make it a very clean install. And I'm also going to give you some cleaning tips as I'm going to go through a cleaning cycle and just show you what I do in terms of cleaning it out and give you some tips in terms of the coco coir and how much and whatnot. I had a difficult time finding some of these answers myself, so I'm sure you have some of these questions, so let's get started. I have a wet bath in my van, and so I made a nice clean installation in here. There was a traditional flush toilet in here when I got it with a black water tank, and I wanted to use a composting toilet as it is much more practical, super easy, and I don't have to worry about the dump stations. And so I'll talk about some of those things in the end, but I'm gloved up, so let's get started. Generally speaking, I clean my toilets, cleaning, I should say. I do pretty much every week. I wipe it down. Every other week, I do what I'm about to show you, which is to go through a cleaning cycle. Now, I've watched a number of videos on YouTube and people talk about changing out the coco coir, and some people talk about how they get a month out of it, or 6 weeks out of it, or 2 months out of it. So let me just clarify with you. How much utilization you get out of it is certainly going to depend on how much you use it, how frequent you go. Let's just be honest. And so if you're a solo traveler like myself, they say you're going to get somewhere in the range of about 25 to 30 uses out of the solids bin before you need to change out the coco coir. So depending on how frequent you go is certainly going to dictate how often you're going to need to change out the solids bin. The liquids bin, you're going to have about 3 to 4 days worth of utilization. I typically look to dump it out about every 3 days, and I'll give you some tips on that. The coco coir, I found I can go 3 to maybe 4 weeks at times. It certainly depends on how often I use it, but I find myself utilizing it pretty regularly on a daily basis. I'm a pretty big guy, 6'3". I certainly eat very healthy. I eat a lot. I'm very active. And so I found it's just best for me to change it out about every 2 weeks. It's very simple. And it just keeps things moving smoothly within the bin, and it's not that big of a deal. And so I just found it just as easy to do a light cleaning, wiping everything down, every other Friday, and the off Fridays I do a little bit of a deeper clean, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So to get started, just lift up the top, and there is the door here, the handle that opens up, and I found it's easiest to open that up. This is actually an add-on. This is to help prevent any spillage of the coco coir if it's over full, if you put too much coco coir in there or you ignore it for quite a while. This is to kind of help keep everything neat and tidy in there. Personally, I'm not sure that I really need it, but at the time it was, I think, only about 10 bucks or so when I ordered the Ogo toilet. Given the cost of everything combined, I figured it was an easy add-on to just have it shipped in. The liquids bin pulls out. Again, I've already rinsed this out, so I will put this aside, and I'm going to do a little more cleaning on that. And then it's just a matter of picking up the solids bucket and carrying it outside. So one of the things that you need to be mindful of is when you have a composting toilet, you obviously have to put composting medium in there, and some people talk about using sawdust and other materials, but I certainly recommend that you use the coco coir. My first order with Ogo, I actually bought the coco coir directly from them. It comes in a vacuum sealed pouch, and each one of them has the correct amount to use. And I found that honestly to be a little bit on the pricey side, given the fact that these bricks are very reasonable. But I also found that these bricks, as I anticipated one brick would be for one changing, what I found was that one brick is probably about 2 changes. So these things are about, $3 to $4 a piece. I'll put the link down in the description. But these are the ones that I use, and I found them pretty easy to use. A lot of people will talk about mixing up their coco coir maybe the night before or just before they do. Now, you can see I've got some left over from the last time. And what I do is I just take a large bag, and I found you can actually do it right as you go. Just take the coco coir brick, pop it in here. Hot water is the key. And all I do is I just actually broke off half the brick because I'm going to need a little bit more here. And I just dump water right into it and allow it to soak in. And as it soaks in, it is starting to expand. Probably hard to see there in the video, but as you put the water in, it starts to expand. You just kind of break it up a little bit. Okay, and just like that. So again, the consistency of the coco coir is more like just, a little on the damp side. You certainly have to add water to break it up, but you don't want it too wet. And I found from experience, it's just as easy to do it. Spend a few minutes to just break it up when you need it. And then I usually have some extras moving along. I'll sometimes do a whole brick, and then I have to use about half a brick, maybe a little bit more than half a brick per change out. Half a brick I found to be just fine. I think some people put a little bit more. I found that in some cases, you put too much coco coir in there and you have too much solids going in there, you can hear the motor start to be a little bit labored over time. And so again, this felt it just makes more sense to change it out once a week and not have any problems or issues, and it's pretty simple to do. Okay, so now that I got enough coco coir, by the way, make sure you do this outside in a place, picnic table or something, wherever you might be staying. It's super easy, and obviously it's environmentally friendly, so very simple to just brush it off. Take your solids bin, plastic bag, dump it over the top, flip it upside down, a couple little shakes here. And what I found from experience is I just kind of tap on it a little bit, get any loose solids here, dump it in. You can see there's very little left, but stuck to the sides. And so now I'm just going to rinse out the bin. And to do that, I have this amazing pressure wash tool that I've probably will leave a link down in this description. I might actually have to do a review on this as I go, but just take this, get your solids bin nice and clean. I'm going to tip that upside down, leave it dry for a moment. And then I also like to just rinse out the liquids bin, give that a good blast out some of the stuff in there. You have to just rotate it around because obviously it's a container with just the one opening at the top. This pressure washer is amazing, this Fantech pressure washer. It's battery operated. I think it holds about 3 gallons. It has multiple settings on it, so you can actually do kind of a straight stream, or you can go a little bit wider with it. I find for this application, it's best to just have the straight stream, get that pressure behind it to just blast out any solids, any debris, anything, any residues that might be collecting there at the bottom. Now, again, I've already rinsed this out, cleaned it out a little bit. We're just using the pressure washer to get some of the crystallized liquids that come up on the bottom. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and leave this sit for a little bit and let it drain out. And some of the things that I've learned, there is a sensor on the Ogo toilet, and I'll show you in a moment, that will actually give you an indicator light as the bin starts to fill up. Probably half, maybe 2/3 of the way, the light will come on to kind of alert you that it's going to be time to change it out soon. I found from experience the best thing to do is to rinse it out and leave it sit for a minute, let it dry out, kind of air dry a little bit before you put it back in, because sometimes you'll get a false indicator on the sensor. I've had times where I've emptied it out, put it right back in, and it's still, the indicator light is still coming on. It tends to go out after a little bit of time, but I think just the liquid on the side of the bin, not really sure how it works, actually just kind of reads as full. So give it some time to air dry, and that will help to reset that sensor. So now that my liquids bin, solids bin are cleaned out, I'm gonna sit and dry for a moment. I'm actually gonna go in and I'll talk you through some of the things that I did to kind of customize my installation, talk about some of the accessories that I've purchased and how it's all worked out for me. So the first accessory we talked about a little bit was this just kind of a retainer, if you will, for the top here. It just sits right on top of the solids bin, and as the agitator spins around in there, it tends to push the coco coir up against the walls. Now, if your solids bin fills up a little too much, if you're kind of pushing the limits on how often you're going to change this might be helpful to help keep the coco coir in there. Again, I think it was like 10 or 12 or $14. They obviously use 3D printer to make this manufacturer, and I figured it might as well pick it up. You know, the total cost of this unit, you know, with everything included in shipping, is probably right at about $1,000, but honestly, I think it was money well spent. I looked at this unit. I also looked at the Nature's Head. Had that right on the tip of my tongue, and it escaped me right as I was going to say it. So I looked at the Nature's Head quite extensively, and the reason why I didn't like the Nature's Head was the profile, the footprint of the Nature's Head seemed a little bit larger than this. It's kind of an awkward shape. You have to completely take it out to clean it. I didn't want to have to worry about that. It's a manual crank, so I think some people might enjoy that a little bit more, but frankly, I like to just hit the button and walk away from it and not have to worry about it. So I did find that to be a nice feature. Now, because I have a wet bath, I also picked up the cover. Because this is electrical, there is a fan that is running in here full time. It's very low wattage. I think it runs at about 5 watts, so it's very low wattage, just to kind of help dry the solids bin. That's the key, is to keep things dry. Because of that, because of the switch, they recommend using this if you do have a wet bath, and so I picked that up. It folds up nicely. I put it just behind here, and when I use my shower, I pull it out, slide it on, and when I'm done, slide it off, let it dry a little bit, and put it back on. A couple other things to keep in mind. When you purchase the Ogo toilet, they are going to send you the hose. Now, it is recommended that you vent your Ogo toilet, and so normally you would have a hose coming out of here, drill into the side. Now, as I mentioned, I did have a traditional flush toilet originally, so there is a vent that goes to the roof. I could have put a hole in here and vented the Ogo toilet, but I wasn't real excited about cutting yet another hole. I do have a water line in here that I capped off. And so I wanted to just keep it as simple as possible. I exchanged some emails with customer care at Ogo, and I asked about the charcoal filters. You can purchase charcoal filters. They come in a pack of 1, or I think you can get a dozen charcoal filters, essentially probably a 2-year supply or so, 18 months or so of charcoal filters. They're not very much. And you actually just slide 6, comes 6 to a pack. You slide all 6 of them into the vent outlet, and this will filter the air as it's pushing out of the Ogo toilet, and thus you have no odor. Now, when I originally got it, I was concerned, I was worried, what am I gonna do? In fact, I have the hose with me still, because normally I would have left this in storage, and I'm 3,000 miles away from my storage, but I had installed it just probably about maybe a month and a half or so before I left for the East Coast. And I wasn't sure if I was gonna have to vent it. So I actually brought it with me. So I have been lugging the hose around. I usually just stick it behind here and put the cover on top of it, but I've not found a need for this other than in the very beginning, I wasn't sure. And what I found from the first experience was that my coco core was too damp, and that's the key. You want to put just enough water in the coco core to let it break down, be kind of like a lightly moist soil is what it feels like. And if you do that, you'll be fine. If there's too much liquid in the solids bin, if it's too moist down there, you're certainly going to have a problem with odor, and that's the reason why 6 months later, I'm still carrying the hose around with me. I debate whether to just toss it or not. I think I'm gonna hold on to it, and I'll toss it in my storage just in case I ever need it, but I've not really found that I need it. I don't seem to have an odor problem on the solids bin. Now, taking a look inside the unit, the way I installed this, because you do need an electrical line, there is an electric fan up here. You can see the switch is over here. When you push on the button here, it's going to activate the mechanism down below to agitate the coco core. So after you do your business, you hit that button. I believe it runs for 45 seconds, and then it automatically shuts off, and that will kind of mix things up just to kind of keep things, kind of start that composting process. Because of that, you're going to need an electrical line. Now, typically there is a port that runs out the back, and the electrical line would just plug in from the back. But because I had a flush toilet in here, I had a hole already down below, and I just simply ran my electrical line up and through that hole. It comes up through the bottom of my Ogo toilet. I removed these screws here at the bottom and took this bottom piece out and just ran my electrical line up through here, put a small hole down here, and ran it up the side, put some tie downs right here, some stick-on tie downs. And this is actually the port that goes into it. It's just a plug-in port, so if I ever needed to take it off, I can disconnect this right here, unscrew it, and remove the toilet. But this was, for me, a little cleaner installation, got the electrical line out of the way, certainly made it a little bit safer in a wet bath environment, and I don't have an electrical line that comes into my Ogo toilet, nor do I have a hose that runs into it, and I've not had any problems. I've been using it for 6 months, and as I talked about, the only time I had a problem with odor from the solids bin was because I had too much liquid. So heed my advice, just keep things nice and dry in there and you'll be just fine. Now, as I've stressed that a couple of times, no odors from the solid side. Again, if you are mindful, you don't have too much liquids in there, you'll be fine. And that's regardless. I found that maybe after I did run a test to kind of see how long I can go, I personally got close to about 4 weeks. And at that time, I felt like it was a little bit of an odor. The bin was pretty full. The motor was a little labored, and so I felt that that was probably a little extreme. I kind of backed off the next couple of times. I changed it about every 3 weeks, and then I figured it just made sense for me to do it every 2 weeks. This whole process, I clean the entire toilet, new coco core, everything out, probably 20 to 30 minutes, and I do that every other Friday. On the off Fridays, I just wipe it down, and again, I've found that I have no problems. Everything works great, no odors, and I've been very happy with it. Now, certainly, I did mention no odors on the solid bin, and I really stressed that a couple of times because I have found there's not really an odor that comes from the liquids bin until you go to empty it. So in full disclosure, I find that changing that or rinsing that out and cleaning that out about every 3 days is best. Again, it depends on how often you use it, but keep in mind, you're gonna be filling that bottle up with urine. It holds quite a bit. I believe it holds about 3 gallons of urine. And so keep in mind, urine does have an odor, and certainly as it's sitting there for a few days, let's just say it gets a little ripe when you empty it out. And so I found from experience that just changing it or emptying that out about every 3 days is best. I originally contemplated tapping into the blackwater tank. I have a 13-gallon blackwater tank, and then I could just have the urine there, but that would certainly require me to go to a dumping station and do that. And I wanted to avoid all that. So honestly, it's pretty easy to dump it out. If I'm out in the middle of nowhere, I can just dump the urine. If I'm staying in an RV park like I am now, I literally just pick it up, walk over to the bathroom, dump it out, rinse it out, put it back in. But what I found is that, and this was something that I didn't actually go out and buy this, so I'm just testing it out for the first time. I found this to be helpful. This is an RV digestate holding tank treatment, and this is neutralizes tank odors. And so as I purchased my van, this was something that they gave me. I'd never used it. And actually just in the last couple of times that I've cleaned out my liquids tank, I put just a couple of capfuls in this in the bottom. Well, okay, let's put it all back together. So I'm going to start by adding a couple of capfuls of my odor neutralizer. Again, this is something I change out about every 3 days. A couple of capfuls. It says 16 treatments of 2 ounces, so this is probably going to last me several months. And then I'm just going to take the coco core and dump it in here, and I'll show you about where it should be. You want to put just enough in there to just get to the top of the agitator down there. So I found it was just at the top. That is about where it was when I got the packs from the manufacturer. And again, some people put a little bit more coco core in there, and some people let it go a little bit longer. Your results may vary, and obviously it's going to determine how often you use it if you're traveling with 2 people. But I found for me, you know, I'm a pretty frequent user. It seems to last me about 2 weeks comfortably, and I could comfortably go 3, maybe a little bit longer. But just change it out every 2 weeks. It seems to be pretty easy. So a couple of things I forgot to mention during the cleaning process. When I open it up and pull everything out, I just use a wipe or something and just kind of wipe everything down a little bit. In terms of cleaning the outside, honestly, I just use Simple Green. It's really the only cleaner that I use in my van. It is also the same thing that I use in between. So they talk about, as you're not flushing, you'll want to have something that you're going to utilize. This is just 1 part simple green, 10 parts of water. There's a little mix thing on the side here. Just pour a little simple green at the bottom, fill it up, and I found that to be pretty handy for just about everything in the van. And then I just usually keep it right here by the toilet, and when I use the liquids side or the solid side, I just spritz it down a little bit, just kind of help rinse everything down and keeps it nice and clean. Open this up, open your solids bin up. Doesn't stay real well when it's in that position. I put the agitator toward the back. I think it can actually go in a couple of different positions. It'll just kind of set right into the locking mechanism down below. Take your solids bin. Sometimes it gets a little hung up on the sensor. You have to kind of tilt it at a little bit of an angle and just slide it down in there. And that's it. Clean and ready to go for another couple of weeks. Very, very simple. Again, typically takes me, maybe 25 to 30 minutes to clean the outside and the inside. And I do that about every 2 weeks, and it's certainly a lot easier than having to find a dump station and certainly paying the fees as you go. The coco coir, like I said, a brick lasts me probably about 2 times. I found from experience you can buy those bricks in packs of 5 or 10 or 15. I think you can actually buy them in packs of 3. Again, check the link down below. The Fantic pressure washer sprayer is also fantastic to help clean out the bins and certainly anything else I got going on. It is an amazing tool to have in my arsenal to just take care of pressure washing, whatever, washing the van or washing the bike or whatever the case might be. So overall, I've really impressed by the Ogo toilet. Now, in shopping for a new toilet, I was looked at a few options. I certainly looked at the Nature's Head. There's a few other brands on the market, but for me, it really came down to either the Nature's Head or the Ogo toilet. I liked the footprint of the Ogo toilet. I liked the more compact size. I thought it was a little bit more contemporary. I also liked the fact that I just push the button and it's kind of push the button and forget about it. It's certainly very easy to clean. Maintenance on it is very simple, and it's a nice, clean installation. I found that I didn't need to vent it as long as I use those filters, which incidentally I change out about every 3 times that I do cleaning. So about every 6 weeks, I change out the charcoal filters. I think there was a pack of 12 packages. So I've got roughly 18 months or so of filters for about 40 or 50 bucks. The coco coir, again, the link's down in the description. I picked those up on Amazon, really simple to use. The Nature's Head does look like a very good product. For my installation, as I measured things out, it seemed like this was going to be a better fit, but I know a lot of people really like the Nature's Head. I did look at some other options, such as the Levo, where you have the diaper genie kind of toilet. And I actually know someone that installed one in their van, so I had an opportunity to play with it a little bit and see how it works. I thought it was an interesting solution. I like how it was very simple, but if you're going to be utilizing your toilet regularly, for me, I use it several times a day. Obviously, I go in the middle of the night as needed or first thing in the morning. I really thought it was a little bit of a waste to use that for urine. There's some powder you put in there to kind of solidify the urine and then kind of tightens things up, and then you just dump it in the trash. But honestly, the downside I felt from that is the cartridges you can only buy from the manufacturer. They're kind of pricey, And so that was a little bit of a downside, where honestly I could buy coco coir at Home Depot or any nursery store, not to mention the fact that they're readily available from multiple vendors on Amazon. So it's very, very inexpensive. I think it's a fantastic toilet. I've been very, very happy with it, have had no problems with it, no odors, no issues with it, and I've been using it for 6 months. So I hope you enjoyed this video review, tips, tricks, and insights in terms of how to install the Ogo toilet and how it's worked for me. Please like, subscribe to my channel, follow me as I go on my journey up the East Coast over the next 9 months, seeing really every city, or not every city, but certainly every state and some of the major cities along the way. So Dr. J here, looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.